Hey, Greg here, founder of Wrestling Divaz, dedicated to highlighting the most beautiful and deadly entertainers in professional wrestling. My next special guest is the current reigning WSU Spirit Champion. She was trained by Mr. Curtis Hughes, and she is also the newest and current knockout for Impact Wrestling on Pop TV. So I'd like to welcome the girl on fire, Miss Kiera Hogan. Hi, Kiera, how are you? Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I really appreciate you being here. I know that your career has definitely gotten a lot of noise, and you're certainly very busy, so I really appreciate your time. I'd like to talk to you about your most recent current endeavor with Impact Wrestling. You're the newest knockout in their division. I think this is an interesting time for Impact because there's a lot of very interesting personalities in the Knockouts women's division. You have Allie, who's very bubbly and very friendly, and then you have someone like Rosemary, who has a character of her own, and now we have you. Very diverse personalities, very diverse styles in there. So with women's wrestling being the way it is right now, I think it's the best time that it has been for female athletes in this industry for a long while. What type of impact, no pun intended, would you like to make as a part of the Knockouts roster? Because it's certainly very different being on TV as opposed to working the independent scene. You get a lot more exposure, and you really get to show people who you are.
Well, for somebody who's been watching like TNA and Impact for years, I think they've always had a pretty diverse division. I always used to look up to the Knockouts because they were so different and everybody wasn't so cookie cutter. Everybody didn't look the same. They didn't do the same things. Nobody was ever the same. So I feel like me personally, I bring, my spunk, my fire, my willingness to go out of the way to make my impact, no pun intended, count. I feel like there have been so many different characters in the past. I mean, I hope to be different, and I hope to, shed some light just on the spitfire little personality that just won't go down without a fight kind of, personality. I just hope to be able to be different and to be able to make a difference in the Knockouts division, especially in my era of the Knockouts division, because I feel like it's so different. And there's a lot of, new faces coming in and out right now, so I just hope to stay around and, make a difference.
So I was doing a lot of research about you, and I had known your career for a little bit on the independent scene as well. This is your third year as a professional wrestler. You were involved with the industry previously for a couple of years before that in other capacities. What I found interesting is that you've made it to this platform on Impact Wrestling, on television, at such a young age and such a young stage in your career, and I'm sure there's a large part of you that's learning as you go. But my point is, I've talked to a lot of people who have worked their entire careers and never gotten to where you are now. So how are you soaking in all of this in terms of progression, in terms of making the best out of these moments? Because you never know when something's going to change or happen. And, you could sometimes lose yourself in terms of enjoying your success. So what do you do to make the most out of the time that you're given on this type of platform?
I just tell myself to enjoy it, to tell myself that I deserve it, because I doubted myself for a very long time. Even after I got signed, I was still doubting the fact that I was even signed because, like you said, I haven't been in the business that long. I haven't been wrestling that long. And, there's so many other people that deserve where I am. But I feel like in the short time that I have worked my butt off. I think every, opportunity I've been given, I've been able to blow out of the park as much as I can. So I just try to soak it all in as a fan of wrestling and as a worker. I feel like I've been able to show why I deserve this spot, and I can go nowhere but up from here, I feel, because at the end of the day, it is a platform to be able to showcase my, abilities on TV, but to a whole different audience that isn't familiar with me at all. Like you said, I've been on the indies for just under 3 years. I haven't even hit 3 years. I don't hit 3 years until April. But I feel like I'll be able to reach a different audience with the Impact Zone because they aren't familiar with me just as much as I have on the independent scene, which I'm still growing on the independent scene as well. But I just tell myself to, stay humble and just remember where I came from and that I deserve where I am.
When I think about the women's revolution, I not only think about the women that are kind of breaking down the barriers, and it comes from all across the board. It's not just this generation, but last generation and generation before that, and all the companies, not just, TNA or the WWE, but all the companies are contributing to the shift that I think the fans have been wanting to see for a very long time. So as far as the contributions that you would like to make and the legacy that you would like to be known for, when your career slows down, what is it that you would like fans to know about you personally as a competitor? Because like you said, at first you start to doubt yourself, and I think you're slowly starting to build some confidence, and I can see that definitely in the ring. But what is it that you would like fans to know about you as you're treading your own kind of legacy during this great time in women's wrestling?
I think I want to be remembered for my energy and my personality and my willingness to be able to do what I have been able to accomplish or will accomplish. And I hate to bring this up, but it's Black History Month, and I feel like there is a lot of, diversity in wrestling right now. And as a Black, athlete, I feel like I'll be able to make an impact for my community as well, and I hope to be able to spread the word that no matter race, gender, whatever, like, you can do whatever you want to do as long as you put your mind to it. And I just want to be able to inspire others to stay determined and follow their dreams. Like my little brother who's playing college basketball, he is so inspired by what I've been able to do because my family didn't want me to pursue wrestling, and I was able to break from what my family wanted to be able to follow my dreams and stay determined and know what I wanted. And I put my mind to this goal, and I've been able to do it thus far, and I still have a lot of things that I want to accomplish in my career, but I just ultimately want to be able to inspire others to follow their dreams. And I feel like for my career, that's what I really would want out of it. I have a tattoo that says "Aspire to Inspire," and literally that's all I've ever wanted to do was to inspire other people to follow their dreams.
Absolutely. And going back to the beginning of your career, before you started your training, you said that your family didn't want you to pursue this necessarily, but I'm curious as to what was the defining moment of your life that made you want to pursue this, because I know that you had been watching wrestling for quite some time before you actually started to wrestle yourself. So what was the moment in your life where you wanted to transition from fan to actual professional wrestler?
I know for a fact I was like 14 or 15. I remember it had to be 14 because I was in middle school. I just remember wanting, like, I don't know specifically what made me want to become a wrestler. I just knew that I wanted to do it. After watching, like, wrestling for a few years, I was just so obsessed and in love with it that I was like, hey, I feel like I can do this. I'm athletic. I think that I would be able to do this. And, like I said, watching all the wrestling that I was watching, especially the women, I feel like the women really, really inspire me, like Mickie James and Trish Stratus at the time, Beth Phoenix, all the women that were, in that era of women really inspired me to become a wrestler. But it's so funny. I was actually talking to one of my friends about this the other day, how you think when you're a fan at a certain age, you're like, oh, man, I would really love to be able to wrestle this person, because that was kind of the reason why you wanted to wrestle, is because you saw these certain people wrestle and you hope to wrestle them one day. But then you realize how young you are and they move on and they get older. But I just knew that watching them, I wanted to be able to be in their shoes or be in the same locker room with them or be able to, pick at their brains and see what I can learn from them. But a specific moment, I don't have a specific moment. I just know when I was 14, I was like, I want to be a wrestler. And it was so funny. I was just like, I want to go right to WWE. I didn't even know about the indies. I was like, I'm going to go to SCW and I'm going to train. I'm going to be a WWE diva. That's all I knew. I just wanted to be in the WWE.
So when you actually did get ready for your training, like I said, you were trained by Curtis Hughes, who has a very impressive resume as far as who he's trained. I mean, Moose is there in TNA. He's trained him. Samuel Shaw had a run in TNA, a great run in TNA, and is also trained by him as well. It can be sometimes intimidating for women to kind of step into that ring and to train because, and I'm being blunt here, but there's a double standard when it comes to women in this industry. A lot of the guys in the locker room think that women want to use wrestling as a platform for other things in entertainment or a bigger modeling career or just something as to put on their resume. What was the environment like as you stepped into training your first couple of months? And you said that you were doubting yourself at first. Did that have anything? You were around predominantly men, or did that have to do with your size? And how did you deal with that?
Well, my first year in the business, like you said, I was an announcer. I did backstage interviewing and announcing because I went up to WWA4 with my boyfriend, Owen Knight, and he was the one who brought me to WWA4. We met on Twitter because of WWA4 at the time. But he had brought me to the show, and I was like, oh, man, I can't wait to train. So for a whole year, I just announced an interview, but I sat at training because I was scared, of course, to tell my mom and my dad that I wanted to be a wrestler. So I just sat at training as much as I could. Whatever day that I could come, I would just sit at training. And just sitting there watching was so intimidating because it was like these big guys are just flipping all around and doing all this crazy stuff. And I'm just like, there is no way I'm going to be able to do this as this little 4'11" little girl who's 18 years old, scared out of her mind, but something, I was just like, here, if you don't get over this fear, you're never going to be able to do this. And, of course, Owen was there, if you want to do this, you're going to have to, push through and do this. It was always intimidating because wrestling is such a male-dominated industry. And, I mean, in most sports, that's what it's like, but especially in wrestling when most of the time there's only one women's match on the card, and sometimes not even that. And, now with the whole women's revolution and all these women on the independents are getting their shot, it's a really, really good time for women to be able to come in and train. You have to push past the fear to be able to do it because, it can be intimidating because there's so many men, and men can be, very harsh. They can be blunt, but, you have to have a tough skin as a woman in this business. And I feel like I finally was able to say, you know what, I want to do this. I'm going to get in that ring. And for a whole year, I was just training with Hughes and Owen and everybody else that was there. And I was the only girl for a very, very long time. And even training with guys was even worse because, well, most of the time, the new guys are, scared because they're like, oh, I don't want to hurt you or girl. And then they take the first hit from that girl, and they're like, all right. And I had to tell them, don't treat me like I'm a girl. I'm here to train just like everybody else. Don't treat me like a girl. Don't take it easy on me. And I feel like that's what really, set the tone for me as a professional is I wasn't afraid to, do anything. I tried to push past the fear. Every new thing that I learned, I had to push past the fear and, stay determined because this is all I've ever wanted to do.
So as you were training with Curtis Hughes and the others at his training school down in Georgia, I know for a fact that he's big on the old school mentality and that he's big on safety and making sure that you're in shape to be a wrestler, that you don't kill your body for the first year that you're in there and have to retire by the time you're 22. So he has a very old school mentality. Is there any particular piece of advice that he gave you that always has stuck with you ever since, or how do you take what he kind of learned and manifest it into your own sort of style? Because it can be difficult to take something somebody tells you as advice and then to go run with it or to make it your own or to mold it into what you believe your style is.
Hughes as a trainer was a character in his Hughes is a character no matter what. He, outside of wrestling and wrestling, Hughes is a character, 100%. So he said so many things that were always so funny to me, but nothing specifically stuck with me. It was just so many different things. He has his little things that he says, but not any, certain advice stuck with me. I just know from him he always instilled the foundation of wrestling. As an old school wrestler, he made sure that we learned the full foundation of wrestling as far as, certain holds and the different ways to do a hold. And he wouldn't go past something until everybody learned it, and then we would go to the next thing. He always made sure that we understood what wrestling was before we even got started with it. And I honestly thank him so much for that, because me personally, I've been able to take that, and I'm more of a mat-style wrestler because of him, because of what he taught me, and because of what I've learned from him. Because, as an old-school wrestler, they were big on the foundation, and I feel like a lot of that is lost in wrestling, honestly. People are so concerned with the flips and the pops and of this move and of you killing yourself and you land on your head and then you get up. Like, I feel like that's being lost in wrestling, and I'm glad that I was taught the psychology and the foundation of wrestling, and I'm able to take that with me wherever I go. I try to make all of my matches make sense. I try to make everything I do count and make sense and matter, and I feel like that's lost, and I'm so glad that he taught me that, and he tells his students that, because it's getting lost in this day and age.
And, yeah, it's very interesting because a lot of the veterans are saying along the lines of what you're saying, and there's also a big debate about whether or not wrestling should be seen more as a form of entertainment or a sports contest or, something in between there. But what has your philosophy been on wrestling? You said that, it taught you the foundation of professional wrestling. Kind of in your own words, what is professional wrestling to you? Because some say it's a simulated contest and then some say it's something different. But I'm curious as to what you think pro wrestling is in the eyes of a fan.
Well, that's a good question. When I was a fan, of course I looked at it as a sport, but I saw something more in it. Of course, the entertainment side. I loved the performance aspect. I loved the entrances and all the glitz and glamour of all the divas. Like, I was really attracted to the glamorous side of it, but now that I'm actually in the business, I see it as what it is. It's sports entertainment, but I feel like in this era of wrestling, we are more concerned. A lot of people are more concerned with the entertainment side and not the sports psychology side of it. I feel like that's what's being lost. Like, right now, the entertainment side is so big because there's so many different things that people are looking for, as far as, like, WWE looking for certain people. I feel like they're looking for, like, faces and personalities, but I feel like, and, they look at the athletic side of people, but like I said, people are more concerned with the entertainment, with the pop of the crowd and with all the flippy, stuff. But I feel like my look on it, I feel like if it doesn't make sense, don't do it. Don't land on your head and get up. Don't land on your head 3 times and get up. Like, if you land on your head 1 time, you need to die. Like, I'm one of those people that's very critical on things making sense, because as a professional now, seeing it, I feel like once you lose me, I can't watch it anymore. Like, when something doesn't make sense to me or if something doesn't seem realistic, quote unquote, I feel like that's where I get lost. That's where you lose me in a match. But if the match makes sense all the way up to the end, and I feel like people also they also forget the emotion in wrestling. When I worked with Booker T this past weekend with title match at Reality of Wrestling, and he told me that people are losing the emotion of wrestling. Like, when we were growing up and we watched wrestling, we loved to see that babyface ask for the crowd. We loved to see that heel, like, spit on that babyface because it made him a bad guy. I feel like that emotion isn't grasped between the wrestler and the fan anymore. I feel like that's also lost. So it's the psychology and it's the emotion with the crowd that I feel like that's what's being lost. Because when I was growing up and Mickie James was in that storyline with Michelle McCool and she called her fat, I cried because that pulled a heartstring with me. That made me feel like she was bullying her, but that's the kind of emotion that I feel like people aren't really grasping for anymore. People aren't really, getting the crowd interacted, and that's what's losing fans because they don't see that anymore. And I feel like as children grow up, their mind is being, programmed to see wrestling in a different light. But I will always see it as an emotional, psychological roller coaster in that show or that match. And I feel like that's my stance on it. I can sit here and talk about this all day.
Well, yeah, and I think I definitely agree. Yeah, I can certainly see where you're coming from, that people need to connect the physicality and the story to the performer and make that mean something, as opposed to just seeing it as a performance, quote unquote, like they would in Cirque du Soleil. It's a legitimate contest.
Definitely.
There are stakes. There are outcomes that matter. And I think sometimes that does get lost in wrestling, and to compensate for that, they try to do these crazy things, which look good on paper, but definitely, I mean, a good athlete can do those flips. Good athlete can't make you cry. So, but as far as, but as far as what you do in and out of the ring, you want to inspire, you want to definitely make your mark. You're definitely a unique performer growing up with your African-American background. This business can be very tough on certain individuals, and especially the female population, like you said earlier, not being looked down on necessarily, but being very judgmental in terms of the way they're seen, the way that their physicality is, how long they may or may not last in this industry. When things don't necessarily go exactly the way that you plan, how do you stay grounded and make sure that you don't lose yourself? Because wrestling has saved a lot of people's lives, and it's destroyed a lot of people's lives, and done the latter. How do you protect yourself in this industry?
Well, I feel like in wrestling, back in the day, there was always a mold that they had that they were trying to get people to fit into. Thankfully, as time has gone on, that mold has kind of shifted, and people are looking at the mold differently. Like, I feel like there's not a true mold of what a wrestler should look like now. Like, back in the day, the big guys and the heavyweights and the girls were just pretty, and they weren't ripped, but they were pretty, and, But I feel like that mold is starting to slowly shift, and they're looking for something else as far as, like, characters and who they think will fit this certain aspect of wrestling that is today. As far as protecting myself, try not to – I've been super hard on myself when it comes to certain things. I can tell you stories about so many different letdowns and stuff that I've just come to terms with that may not ever happen because of, my race or my gender, which, it comes with the territory of being in a business where appearance is everything, and who is everything. I've come to terms with being let down is okay, because something bigger is right around the corner. So if this door doesn't open, another one will open soon enough. And I tell my friends, if you speak positive into the universe, it sends positive back. So if something lets me, like if I get let down with something, say a few months ago, I know maybe months or weeks later, something else good will come out of it. Like, I may be sad now, but something else good will come out of it. Like, I had a situation the day of my Impact TV debut, and it was so heartbreaking, but I knew that I could not let it affect me because something else was going to come out of it, which was my TV debut, and all my friends and family supporting me in that time. But, I just try to look at the brighter side of things. As much as it hurts then, I know it won't hurt later when something else comes along.
Absolutely. Before we get to how people can contact you, in case they need to reach for bookings or whatever, if you could sum up your career as it stands right now in just one word, what would that one word be?
Say that question one more time. You went out a little bit.
If you could sum up your career so far in wrestling using just one word, what would that one word be?
Oh, man. I thought I would just have a word kind of pop in my head. overcoming. Yeah, overcoming.
Well, I certainly love your positive attitude, and I know that this is only the beginning for you. And you're certainly very active on the independent scene as well as what you're committed to with Impact. So how can fans and bookers alike reach you so that there's no confusion out there?
Well, you can email Kiera Hogan Business at yahoo.com. That's my booking email. You can also, message me through Facebook. I have a personal and fan page. Both are Kiera Hogan. My Instagram is at Hogan Knows Best 18, and my Twitter is Hogan Knows Best 3, and I also have a public Snapchat, which is Hogan K2, I believe.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Kiera, and I just love your positivity and your energy level. I think that there are certainly more people like you who need to be in this industry, and I really do wish you all the best for the future, and I think this is only the beginning for you. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved all your questions.
I'm glad. Thanks for everyone else for tuning in. Be sure to check out Wrestling-Divaz, divaz.webs.com for all the latest news and updates. And be sure to follow us on Twitter at Wrestling Divaz again with a Z for all the latest updates.